As we now have it, synodality was invented by Pope Francis as a way of changing the way the church is governed. Pope Francis decided we have to develop a theory to say that synodality is really about walking together as a church, and that all the baptized somehow now share in the bishop's role in guiding the church, meaning governing the church. This is anathema. This is an idea that is not found either in Vatican II or in Christian history.
She says, I often quote an Australian theologian who was at our synod, who states synodality is the Second Vatican Council in a nutshell. Doing what we are doing is really referred to the vision of the Second Vatican Council. That there is a brand new paper coming out of Cambridge that concludes that the Second Vatican Council triggered a decline in worldwide Catholic attendance. That's their conclusion.
By the way, my name is Joe McClane. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
There's an article over at thecatholicthing.org, the Jargon-Filled Synodal Trajectory by Father Gerald Murray. He joins us this morning to discuss it. Father, welcome back, and thank you for hanging out with us. Loved your article.
Thank you, Joe. Good to be with you.
Yeah, loved your article. It's been one of my chief complaints about a lot of the documents that come out of the Vatican over the past several decades. It's like whoever writes them grabs a thesaurus and just, finds anything they can throw in like a pot of soup. It just gets a little overwhelming sometimes, and you're just scratching your head trying to figure it out. And so I was very glad that you said the quiet part out loud in this article. You start with the notion of a church that is one holy, Catholic, and apostolic, and now synodal isn't clear to most because synodality is a largely unknown concept. I would even throw another log on that fire, Father, and say most of us, not only do we not really understand it, but we also hoped it would just go away under Pope Leo. But it is this idea of clarity is a real problem, isn't it?
Well, yes, when you use a concept that is undefined or ill-defined as the center of your focus, as the Office of the Synod of Bishops does, you got a problem, because essentially synodality means whatever they tell us it means, meaning the people in charge, because you can't go to the history of Christian doctrine and practice and say, yes, synodality means the following. Because as we now have it, synodality was invented by Pope Francis as a way of changing the way the church is governed, because the Synod of Bishops, created by the Second Vatican Council, implemented by St. Paul VI, that has a clear delineation of what it is. It's a periodic meeting of bishops. Pope Francis decided we have to develop a theory to say that synodality is really about walking together as a church, and that all the baptized somehow now share in the bishop's role in guiding the church, meaning governing the church. This is anathema. This is an idea that is not found either in Vatican II or in Christian history. So it's troubling when jargon-filled documents come forward advancing this notion and basically assuming that there's nothing to be discussed or critiqued here, because all of it's self-evidently the implementation of Vatican II. Well, that's where the problem is. This is not what Vatican II called for, and it certainly is a dead end if it's a question of how we're going to advance the mission of the church.
Many talking head critics like myself under Francis would always criticize that they were weaponizing ambiguity. They were using this gobbledygook language intentionally. We would argue that they were using it intentionally so that we wouldn't know where the goalposts were, making it easier, I guess, to sort of cross over heterodox, orthodox boundaries here. And it seems like that's part of the problem. As a canon lawyer, would you agree with that? Do you think that there is a real risk of using ambiguous language on purpose for an agenda?
Sure. No, I think this is part of the problem that we experienced in the last pontificate, that the Pope would issue a document which contradicted a document that had already been issued either by himself or one of his predecessors, and then both of those documents would be there. For instance, the Synod of Bishops to include lay people, that was not found in what Pope Francis issued when he issued a document on the Synod about 5 years into his pontificate. But then in an interview, he said, well, of course women are going to be part of the synod. And then things changed. But the controlling document of what the synod is never had a change in and of itself. So as a result, you can say, well, if what we were told in the past is subject to revision, everything else is subject to revision. But what are the bases on which it's going to be understood? Well, we don't know because no document has laid those out. So I know that's very complicated language to basically say, if something isn't in part of Christian history and it's invented, then whoever invented it is the master of the situation, because he can say, well, today it means this, but tomorrow we decided to improve on it and it means something else. So yeah, the Synod of Bishops leading to synodality, leading to the Ecclesial Assembly of 2028, this is all unknown territory, which is subject to manipulation.
How much does Pope Leo have in his personal involvement in the synodal process? I mean, I know that probably sounds like a dumb question, but I imagine the Pope is a busy guy and has a lot on his plate, many people coming to visit him every day. How much time, how much involvement does he have, or does he just delegate this whole process to a subcommittee? Like you even quote Sister Natalie Beckart here, and I want to get to her comment in a second. But like, are they just sort of running with it, or is there any oversight?
Well, each Vatican department has responsibilities, and the Holy See includes, the Synod of Bishops Secretariat, which technically speaking is not part of the Holy See. It's a separate institution, but it functions similar to other departments in the Vatican. So they do their job. They come to see the Pope. They propose things. The leadership discusses ideas. So it's too early in the pontificate to say exactly how much Pope Leo is involved in those decision-making. For instance, this document that came out that I quote in the article, that obviously was under preparation during the reign of Pope Francis. And how much of that work was done and reviewed by Pope Leo, we really don't know. So it remains to be seen how much involvement and therefore how much agreement Pope Leo has with the document that came out and further documents that we're expecting.
Going to the quote from Sister Natalie Beckart, the Undersecretary of the Synod of the Secretariat, you say, or she says, I often quote an Australian theologian who was at our synod, Ormond Rush, who states synodality is the Second Vatican Council in a nutshell. And all our documents, and still in these pathways in the final document, highlight that we are doing what we are doing is really referred to the vision of the Second Vatican Council. We can say synodality is the way to understand the ecclesiology of the Second Vatican Council and the stage of the reception of the council. That's a very troubling statement, especially in light of the fact that there is a brand new paper coming out of Cambridge from the National Bureau of Economic Research that concludes that the Second Vatican Council triggered a decline in worldwide Catholic attendance. That's their conclusion, actually. We'll be linking to this article today. I mean, that seems troubling to a lot of us that there's such a tie here to the Second Vatican Council. Would you see it that way as well, Father?
Well, I don't know what it means to say you can put the entire Vatican Council and all of its documents into a nutshell. I think that's just a sloganeering. They're basically saying the supreme idea to come out of Vatican II is synodality. And therefore, everything that Vatican II said or did, or was said or did at the council, can be reduced to the idea of implementing synodality. This is not a true notion at all. Synodality doesn't appear in the council according to the way it's being practiced right now. The Synod of Bishops was created at the council because in the past you would have synod referred to generally ecumenical councils or national or particular councils, meaning bishops meeting in nations or in regions or universally. But the synod, the innovation of Vatican II was to create an advisory mechanism whereby select bishops would come together to meet with the Pope on a periodic basis. And it was all about shared governance of the episcopal order in the church. So the bishops are the shepherds, and the shepherds assist each other, and the Roman pontiff, since he has universal jurisdiction over the church, He needs to know and to get advice about how to confront challenges and promote the mission of the church in different parts of the world. That's, of course, why you have a synod of bishops, so we can hear about it. So we've had many different synods held under the different popes, Paul VI, John Paul II, Pope Benedict. So that's how synodality is understood. To say now, because synodality, since the experience of it is lay people taking over roles reserved formerly to bishops, the idea of synodality is shared governance. In other words, lay people, by virtue of being baptized, have a right and a claim to be part of the ruling order in the church, the governing authority. This simply is not the case. That's a Protestant notion. That's like Presbyterianism. It's like Congregationalism. In the Catholic Church, the shepherds are appointed as the successors of the apostles, and they derive their authority from Christ himself, not from the agreement of the diocese or the people who are present in any particular area. So this notion of synodality is, I think, a big problem because it impinges upon the hierarchical structure of the church. And I'm hoping and praying that Pope Leo will come to that same conclusion and restrict synodality to what it should be, which is a meeting of bishops. Now, bishops who are smart, and they've always done this, have lay advisors, and lay people are experts, and they're invited to synods not as members and participants, but as experts, and they can be listened to, and observers make comments. But the idea that, at the last synod that was held, a college student has the same vote as a cardinal in charge of a Roman dicastery in producing a document that then becomes part of the magisterium if the Pope decides to make it such. This is not how the Catholic Church runs. This is an innovation that is not consistent with Catholic teaching. So this is where the battle is going to take place. Does synodality mean what Vatican II said it meant, or does it mean this new notion that everybody is equal when it comes to advising, ruling, and teaching in the church?
Yeah, I think that's part of the issue with the Vatican II discussion that comes up, pops its head up every once in a while, is that even Bishop Barron spoke of this years ago. It seems like there was a contingent within the church that used Vatican II as its front to propel all of these modernist ideas. And it was less to do with what was said or written at Vatican II as much as what they wanted people to believe was said or written at Vatican II. And frankly, when I read this quote in your article from Sister Natalie, my red flags are going up. The hair stand up the back of my head. I'm like, they're still at it. This is what they want. They want this, post-Vatican II modernist revolution is what it feels like in so many ways. And to your point, I would love to see Pope Leo sort of correct all of this, but he seems to work very slow and very cautiously and very calmly. What do you think the chances are of getting sort of a redefinition away from some of this more troubling stuff to something more traditional?
Well, we'll wait and see. The Pope's only been in office a few months, so he's got a lot happening. It's going to take time for people to produce critiques. Some of them are already produced, I'm sure, different cardinals and theologians, but then for the Pope to read them, to consider them, to listen. We can hope and pray that synodality will, if in the broader notion that they like to call it, we're consulting everybody, that it'll include consulting critics of synodality, not
Amen.
Simply the people in the synod office in Rome. So it's too early to say what Pope Leo's understanding of synodality is. We certainly know that he was part of the last synod because he was head of the bishop's congregation or dicastery. He was a member of it. He's participated in it. He said he wants a synodal church right from the balcony of St. Peter's. But what does he understand it to mean? He is a canon lawyer, therefore he understands canonically the difference in church governance between actually ruling and then being an advisor to the ruler. So let's see if he returns to that classical notion, which is that good governance in the Catholic Church has to be faithful to the hierarchical nature of the church, and that is not a free-for-all.
I mentioned it with the conversation with Father Gerald Murray in the last segment, but I posted this to my ex yesterday, and this morning I saw that Phil Lawler weighed in on it. Data shows Vatican II triggered decline in Catholic practice. There's a report out by the National Bureau of Economic Research out of Cambridge. And I'm going to link to this in the show notes so you can download the report and read it for yourself. But I want to go through what Phil Lawler had to say. He says, throughout the Western world, Catholic Mass attendance has declined dramatically since Vatican II. This is an established fact. But did the Council or its aftermath cause the decline, or was the decline part of an overall cultural trend that the Council could not reverse? That question has prompted lively debate for several decades. In an interesting new contribution to the debate, the National Bureau of Economic Research finds that Vatican II was the cause of the decline. An NBER working paper entitled Looking Backward, Long-Term Religious Service Attendance in 66 Countries reports that Vatican II in 1962 to 65 triggered a decline in worldwide Catholic attendance relative to that in other denominations. Notice, he goes on to say, the last clause of the sentence. After an exhaustive evaluation of the available data, the NBER dismisses the notion that a worldwide secularization trend hit all religious institutions more or less equally. Not so, the working paper finds. The decline was particularly acute in Catholic countries. Secularization hit Catholics harder than other religious groups. Well, this is exactly why I said to Father Murray that Sister Natalie Beckart, basically, and the way I hear her voice in my head as I read her comments, gleefully attributing connecting the synodal way, the synodal trajectory to the Vatican II Council in a nutshell. I'm very concerned about that for this very, very reason. It goes on. The NBER findings are noteworthy for two other reasons. Number one, the NBER is a heavyweight institution in the field of economic research. Established in 1920, the group has produced thousands of solid studies. Its list of affiliated scholars includes more than 20 winners of the Nobel Prize for Economics and more than a dozen post or past chairmen of the President's Council of Economic Advisors. Number two, the working paper is a product of economic research prepared by experts analyzing statistical data. Unlike many other contributors to the arguments about the effects of Vatican II, the NBER authors show no interest in intramural Catholic arguments. They're an outside interest. They have no dog in the fight, he says. So let that sink in. They don't care either way, personally. He goes on. Numbers cannot tell the whole story about declining mass attendance, of course, but in their analysis, the NBER authors conclude that the data are consistent with the religion modeled as a club good and with the view that Vatican II shattered the perception of an immovable, truth-holding church. They also make the interesting observation that Vatican II's depressing influence on the number of nuns led to a sharp decline in fertility among Catholics because of the loss of childbearing support and the collapse of the parochial school system. You don't got to go very far to find the aftermath, the wreckage of the post-Vatican II era. Just go to, the Northeast. But it's not just the Northeast. It's across our country here in the United States. It's across the world. But in the United States, closures of parishes, massive declines, properties sold off that now become restaurants or mosques or whatever. It's happening. It's happened. And it's completely depressing. He goes on. The strength of this working paper lies in its sophisticated mathematical analysis of church attendance data. Its weakness appears when it cites the theories of other authors on why Vatican II led to a decline in Catholic piety. The publication relies too heavily on the work of the late Father Andrew Greeley, who, as the NBER authors acknowledge, insisted that it was the debate over Humanae Vitae more than any other that shattered the authority structure of the Catholic Church. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Humani Vitae. So many resisted it. So many fought against it. This is why Paul VI didn't write another one, did he? It was a big deal. It was a big deal. It goes on, setting those issues aside, though, and again, the NBER authors do their best to avoid their intramural Catholic debates. The paper concludes the Vatican II was the event that precipitated the decline. It was the event that precipitated the decline. For our purposes, the main point is that the Vatican II unanticipated changes in religious service attendance rates would not have occurred earlier in anticipation of Vatican II, and the subsequent changes in attendance would have been unanticipated. Furthermore, the decline in attendance is specific to Catholicism, to which Vatican II would directly apply. Sounds like a lot of gobbledygook language, but I'm going to link to the actual study itself in the show notes for you today, and you can find and read this for yourself and read its conclusions. These people look at all of this data. They look at all this data. And I've done this before as myself, as I've gone through the CARA data, the statistics post-Vatican II going back the last 6 decades. What do you see? Parishes closed and shuttered. Religious institutions decimated with no new novices. Priest vocations are down, both religious and secular. People aren't getting even sacramentally married. They're just shacking up, not let alone baptizing their babies, let alone sending their kids to Catholic school. Now, a homeschool has to be an option because the Catholic schools tend to be very bad. The post-Vatican II era was horrible. The experiment needs to come to an end. The debate needs to be had because mature Catholics know that they can debate anything, have serious conversation about what was bad and what was good. And we need to end the experimentation of the post-Vatican II implementation of modernism. It's not been good for us. And now even the outsiders, let that sink in.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.